In this video, we'll see render engines in Blender. So what is a render engine already? A render engine is an entire piece of software that will show you what's happening between the light, the object, and the environment. Okay, so for example, here we have the light that comes from the HDRI, the reflection that comes from the HDRI goes into Suzanne and comes back with information, with pixels informations into us, and this is the render engine work. So here we have several render engines in Blender. We have two basically. The third is not really a real render engine, and you can find it here. Okay, so basically it's very simple to understand. There are a few things that we will manage together, but already cycles, this one is really for more realism. Okay, if you search photographic look, more realism, you will use cycles. It will take more time to render, but it will be better for this task. Okay, then you have Eevee. Eevee, as you can see by default, it's far less realist, and here we can realistic here, and we can just tell by default it will not look realistic, but it's far more quicker to make the render, so it can be sometimes really useful to make quick render or animations or things like that. Yeah, it's almost a real-time engine, like a game engine system. Okay, and here you have the workbench. So the workbench, it's a little like the 3D view that you have by default here. You can find exactly the same options that you have here, okay, than you have here. So it's just to share maybe with colleagues or things like that, or yeah, to other people a screen of your 3D view. And so now if you make F12, you will have this view directly. Okay, so you can change with the three render engines, even if the workbench is not really a render engine here. What we will do, we'll just add a camera here, and just to make a little comparison. Okay, so let's add a camera, and maybe just with that view I will make Ctrl-Alt-0 and have this kind of framing here. Okay, so if I look here at the cycles render, maybe let's put an environment with this kind of outside view like that. Yeah, it's perfect. And maybe we'll add the lights as well, and we will not put the strength too much, like 0.5 will be a nice yeah, something nice to render like this. Okay, so now if I want to make a render, I just have to see a little, I just have to watch little options here. You have the noise threshold, so it tells that it will stop rendering, it will stop compute when you have not too much noise into the image here. And here it's the same, but with a higher value. You have the viewport and the render here. The samples are the number of time that it will compute. So by default, I found it very too high. So what I do, I just put 100 here, and 16 here will be enough for what we have to do. Okay. And what I will do, I will just make F12. So now it will start compute, and you can see here that it will render the samples, and the image will look less and less blurry. And then after it will denoise, you have some noise, it will denoise, and then after you have the render. Okay, perfect. Maybe I did enable the highlights into the render here as well. So not the light experiment here. So it doesn't look exactly like in the viewport. Be careful of that. Huh? And now I have the render that I want. Okay, so here you can see it takes some time a little, and the time is 13 seconds here, and I have a decent image to render. Good. Now I would like to play with the slot 2 and come to make the comparison with here Eevee. Eevee by default, the samples and the render here are good. You don't have to change anything. You have the shadows. You see that you have some shadows, but it doesn't reflect the environment. For example, if you watch Suzanne, the reflections of Suzanne, you can see that it reflects, and it's really strange. It reflects the HDRI and not the table. So to make understand Blender that there is a table here, you have to enable ray tracing here. Ray tracing will make your render look better, but it will increase a little the time of rendering. And it will blur a little the image as well, especially reflections here. In Suzanne, we can see it already. So now I can make F12 and we can see a little the differences. So now you see it's finished already, and we have an image that was for, let's say 3 seconds and a half, okay? So 3 seconds for this one, 13 seconds for that one. We could increase a little the quality of the second one by moving some little options or things like that, but it will never be exactly the same. As you can see here, even the plant here, for example, here the plant, you have the light that goes through it, so it's really more realistic. Here I don't talk about the reflections there that are really more beautiful. So yeah, even if you enable ray tracing into Eevee, it will never be as good as cycles, or you will have to tweak a lot of things. The first thing to notice, and a big difference between the two render engines, it's the HDRI lighting. So here, if I come back to cycles, disable the highlight, disable the light here. Oh, sorry. So disable the lights here. Good. And put back the sky strains at, let's say, 1. Okay. And I will go into one that creates some shadows, like for example, maybe the Victoria sunset here that create nice shadow. I will put the rotation like this we'll have something interesting. You can see that we have real shadow that comes from the HDRI. So if I go there now in Eevee, you can see the difference. Here you have no, and that's why it cannot be as beautiful as cycles. Sometimes it's very useful to use render engine Eevee. I don't tell it's not good. It's just made for quick tasks, okay? And if you want, you can really have really nice renders in Eevee. I come back here to show you that into Blender here, demo files. So you can see that there is a specific area for Eevee, and it shows really that Eevee is a good render engine. Like for example, look at this image, okay, or that one here, or that one. So it can really create nice stuff, but yeah, you have to tweak more things to have realistic image for sure. So it's the main difference between the two render engines. The HDRI will not create shadow, and it's so much less realistic. Look at this image here and look at this image. Okay, you can choose whatever. And here you have so the possibility to make better renders with cycles, more photographic look. You have advanced features, so you see here the viewports samples and the viewport samples here. If you put more, it will make more time to render. If I put 500, for example, and make a render now, you can see that it will start to compute and now it will just compute the 500 samples. So it will refine and refine more the noise of the image. But as we use denoise in the end, usually we don't have to go that high, except for specific cases, okay? But in that case, for example, 100 will be enough, okay? So you can see here, it took 28 seconds, and it's not really, it will not be a big change. For example, if I take the slot 2, for example, to make a comparison here and make something at 50, let's go really low, or let's take 50, for example, and enable the denoise. If you have here the GPU, use GPU for denoise. You can use different kind of denoising style. Like for example, you can use optics if you have CUDA, if you have a NVIDIA card, so can be very useful as well. But by default, everything is good. Just use the GPU to make it quicker. And let's use F12 again with their settings. Okay, and you can see that now it will go far quicker. For sure, you have only 50 samples, and the difference between the two images, there are some little differences, but honestly, slot 1, slot 2, slot 1, it's a little over there that you will find some little differences, maybe, into the reflections. But we cannot tell that the second is bad, is less good. Here, it's already very good. So you see that here, just with 6 seconds, I have already something very good in cycles. So is it good to use Eevee for this task and have something quicker? I'm not sure. With denoise and everything and good setup, it will be okay. So be careful. It use a lot of the GPU, so be aware that you need a good GPU to work in 3D anyway. So this is the world. And so yeah, you can, but honestly, with a 4060 GTX, it's not a so big investment, and you can start to make already really good stuff. And then if you want to go more professionally or something like that, you can go with graphic cards that are more expensive, like the 470, 480 or 90 even, if you have high budget. But yeah, it can be really good to have something that is comfortable to work with. I think that for now 470 is a good choice to have something already really comfortable. So yeah, and here we have the possibility to manage in the advanced, not in the advanced, sorry, in the light path. You have to enable the number of bounces that will be in the render engine. So for example, how to show you that? I will show you that with an object with no reflections, but with here transmission. Okay, so and let's enable the transmission of the object and decrease the metallic, and now we'll have something like this. So totally transparent like that. So it works pretty well. But let's say it will cross 1 time, 2 time, select the color behind, 1 time, 2 times, so it will be 4 times to come back to the camera. Okay, and this is the number, so it will cross 1 time, another time there, at this point, it will go find the information behind, like for example this part of the wall, and come back here and there. Okay, so it will be 4 times for this. If I have another object, it will be 8 times behind. If I have another object, it will be 12 times, and etc. So you can just imagine that if you have a lot of transparent objects, you will need a lot of bounces. And here into the render, it's this number that you will manage. And it will work for the transmission here. For example, it's the transmission here because it goes through the object. So it's 12 by default. So it will manage well, let's say 3 objects. But if you have 4, 6 objects like that, that will have a lot of transparency that the light will go through, you will have to increase this. And usually you can see that it creates kind of dark dots on it. And so if you have this kind of artifacts, you just increase the transmission value here or the total transmission there. And that's it. The rest usually we don't talk about it that much. You can use caustics here. You can use clamping. It's more for manage the noise here, but as we have the denoiser, we don't have to talk about it that much. We have some volume settings as well. So for volume objects like clouds, but we will see that maybe in the shaders. And that's it. The simplify, the motion blur is important, and it's for both here. You have the cycles and the Eevee that is here, and you have the motion blur as well. So what is the motion blur? It's when you have an object that is animated and that cross, for example, the camera here. So let's go for it. And with Suzanne here, we will tell that Suzanne is here, and we will see how to make animation after, for sure. But let's say Suzanne is here behind the wall. Let's go. No, let's make GX, maybe GY. Okay, and put it there. Okay, and I input a key into the location and go maybe 100 frames later and make GY again and make it cross until here. Okay, like this it will go fast. And I make a key here. We will really see that into the animation chapter, but now we can see that Suzanne is animated, and here we can not see that there is any blur because we didn't enable the motion blur. And now that we did enable the motion blur, when you make a render, it will appear. So you can increase the shutter here and increase the steps and make F12, and you will see the result here. Okay, and you see that now Suzanne has motion blur into it. And it will be exactly the same kind of settings that you will find into cycles as well. Okay, so you have here the motion blur with a shutter option here that you can increase or decrease. And now if I make a render, it will show that there is some blur into my object because it goes through the scene like that. Okay, so it's important to understand this system. Into the film option here, you have the possibility to manage the exposure, the global exposure. You have to manage if you want the world transparent or not, but it's already here in Easy HDRI, so we can just, it's the same button here really. So as it's already here, maybe we don't use it that much here. And for the rest, you have already, everything that is covered. Most important is covered there. You have the bake option that maybe we'll see later. The grease pencil that you can draw objects into it, and freestyle to make a more toonish render. But honestly, it's really specific cases, and we will not use them that much. So that's it for the render engines. You can see that I recommend for everything if you want to use Blender to create realism or not too much toony things, you can use cycles. It will create better scenes, or honestly, for reflections, for shadows, for caustics, for blur. When you talk about motion blur or things like that, everything is better in Cycles. It takes more time to render, and so that's why you need a good graphic card. So that's it for the render engines, and we will make a little exercise to create a studio with 3-point lighting.